FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, and it's 10/10/19. I think that's a lucky number. What do you think? Hey, well, we're going to be talking with somebody, a new guest. We're always looking for new guests because, look, as much as I like the old standards, you want to keep the show current. You want to keep it interesting. You want new people to listen to it. Then you got to get new guests. And we're trying not to just run an echo chamber here, although sometimes it feels like we are, but we try to stray away from that. Anyways, got a guest. The website is Watchdog on Wall Street. That's Watchdog on Wall Street. And the guy's name is Christopher Markowski. I just can't believe, Chris, that we haven't run across each other in our travels. You've been doing what you do for so long. I've been doing what I've been doing for nearly a decade, but here we are today. And of course, welcome to the show. So one thing that kind of caught my eye, Elizabeth Warren gets caught lying again. I mean, I don't believe anything the woman said, but what your commentary was prostitutes are much more honorable than many American businesses, and I would venture politicians that bend over for China. Elizabeth Warren, I take it you're not a big fan?
Oh, listen, I fall into the guys. I can have a conversation with everyone, and I love to go ahead and debate policy and what's going to work and what's not going to work. I got a kick out of the fact that I guess her marketing campaign is she's got a plan for that. Yeah, you know, also had a plan for everything too. The Soviets, they had a plan for everything.
A 5-year, a 7-year,
5-year plans, 10-year plans.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of plans where the government ends up tinkering around with things and they end up screwing it up. The ideas that she's put forward are downright nuts as far as wealth taxes are concerned. What she wants to do, she has no idea what this is going to do to the financial markets, what it's going to do to pension funds, what it would do, especially in today's day and age when there's so much money is tied up in exchange traded funds, where you're going to have some sort of financial reckoning day when people have to sell off all of these shares to make good on their tax. I mean, people, it's unfortunate, but people think when they see Jeff Bezos, they think of these people like Scrooge McDuck, and they've got houses with like gold coins in them. No, their wealth is tied up in the businesses that they own and their stock, and you have to sell that in order to get cash to pay the taxes.
Here's where
you're going to have massive sales of taxes of stock all the time to pay tax bills.
For sure, liquidation, and that will bring the market down. But here's where we disagree, because I know that she is connected to the wise indigenous peoples of America who we used to call Indians by blood. I know that she will have the wisdom to execute these policies flawlessly, to only choose the wisest courses of action, because that's what her ancestors would want. And that's what the way they trained her, right?
I'm a longtime lacrosse player, and now I'm a lacrosse coach and a lacrosse fan. I think that makes me more Indian than she'll ever be.
Hey, you got a good point that lacrosse, really does connect you with the original inhabitants of America. But seriously here, the woman is a pathological liar. She reminds me in her lies, she's almost Clinton-esque in them, only she just doesn't get excited about lying at all. It's just, she's just talking to you and lying to your face. It'll be amazing now that the campaign is underway to see what else she's lying about.
Well, it's the first time in a long time that I actually am, speaking with people. Wall Street, people seem to think that Wall Street's connected to Republicans, and they're not. For the most part, the big wigs on Wall Street are big-time Democratic donors. And in the case of Elizabeth Warren, she actually frightens them. There actually been a couple calls out this past week saying, hey, well, you know what? It's not going to be so bad because Congress is going to be able to hold her back from all of the things that she wants to do. But, they were spooking them to some degree. These ideas out there that she continues to float. But I mean, every day, there's not a day that doesn't go by where things get more and more absurd to me, where we've got another plan. I mean, now we've got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying, hey, guess what? You get in here. It doesn't matter if you're illegal or not. You're going to get Medicaid, and you're going to get welfare, and you're going to get unemployment. We can't be an open borders country and also be a welfare state. There comes a point in time where we just don't have any more money. And now we're talking about raising taxes to increase Social Security benefits. Social Security is already going under. I mean, everybody wants to hand out free stuff all the time. I haven't heard free beer yet, but I'm sure it's coming.
Well, helicopter money can't be that far away. But, our good friend Howie Carr kind of hit the nail on the head about her. She put the lie back in Liawatha. And, she won't tell. Well, she just admitted today, I don't know if you caught it or not, that she's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts, and she's going to raise at least 3 other taxes. And, when Wall Street is starting to be scared of a Democrat, things are starting to happen. I've seen this before. They're turning on her. Look, she was solely responsible for getting put into place the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which all it did was protect big banks. It hasn't, and even them, It's injured. It's injured, thousands and thousands of small businesses around the country, if not around the world. This was her brainchild. She was supposed to head it up. I don't know if we were better off with her or Richard Cordray. The only thing is, if she had headed it up, she wouldn't be senator now and probably wouldn't be running for president. But this was one of her plans that went totally awry, totally amok, really hurt the economy, hurt the economy at the worst possible time when we were recovering from the so-called Great Recession. That was the last time to be putting more controls in. We need sensible financial controls on these behemoth banks. All right. And the CFPB did nothing of that, nothing of the sort. Neither did Dodd-Frank, other than Dodd-Frank, the American public.
Oh, we've had a series of that. You can go all the way back to Sarbanes-Oxley, Dodd-Frank, and all these things put forward. I mean, I said it. If all that regulation Dodd-Frank got put through when I was starting my company decades ago, I would have been put out of business. I was lucky at that point in time that I could afford all of the additional regulations and everything that were put forward, but many didn't. And this is why we don't have many community banks anymore. And they just said, all right, that's it. We can't afford to be in business anymore. We're just going to have to sell to the larger banks. And again, it made the bigger banks bigger. They basically have a regulatory edifice, wall, superstructure with a moat surrounding them that makes them omnipotent, which again isn't fair, because guess what? They're able to get borrowing rates that nobody else is able to get, and puts it on an unequal playing field. And again, this is something that I rant and rave about all the time. You go back to our declaration, all men being created equal is not about me looking like Brad Pitt. It's about us all being equal under the law, and we're not. And that's what these regulations do, and that's what the tax cuts do. And it's about control. And again, Karl Marx knew this well. Lenin knew it well. You needed to have a very good relationship between big banks and big government to pull off any sort of don't call it successful big government. I guess that's a bit of an oxymoron, but that type of control you want to have over people.
Hey, well, I'm looking at the picture on your website. I thought it was Brad Pitt at first, but now I do recognize there's a little bit of a difference here. So, hey, we're not all Brad Pitt, and we're not all Warren Buffett, and it's not up to the government to pick winners and losers, but this is exactly the business that the government's into. So, Trump, love him or hate him, they're trying to get rid of him. As far as I'm concerned, I will go back to the old Arabic saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If I judge Trump by the enemies he's made, and those enemies of his are my enemies and your enemies. So we got to keep this guy in office, if for no other reason than to just let these people know that there's somebody who's on their back, who's got our backs covered, who just isn't going to take this anymore.
Yeah, listen, I'm an equal opportunity basher on my program. And I'll really admit, I left the Republican Party a long time ago.
It
The
left
Bush
you.
administration. I got sick and tired of him lying and saying that we're going to do one thing and do another thing. And the reality is that Donald Trump is not a Republican. He's Donald Trump. And one of the things that I've tried to get across on my program, I call it my watchdog on Wall Street axis of evil. The big business politicians in the mainstream media, it's the establishment, it's the swamp. I've been talking about it for a long time, and he's going after it, and that's what we need to do. He needs to go further. I mean, I know. I want him. As far as I'm concerned, at this point in time, you need to dismantle the FBI. You need to dismantle the CIA. We need to start over. All of these entrenched areas that have become so powerful that we've lost control of them. We need to bring a lot of this power back to the people. I'm a big believer in the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, where guess what? In our local communities, we can handle things much better than a centralized government in Washington, D.C. When you have some of the wealthiest zip codes in the entire country surrounding our capital, that's the problem. That's not how this country was supposed to be designed. You've got $4 trillion plus in a budget going through that city every single year with everybody taking their vig. They're like Don Fanucci and Godfather 2. Everybody's got to wet their beak. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're wetting their beak and they're getting very, very wealthy. All of these people going to D.C., it's not a high-paying job to become a congressman, but all of a sudden you're a multi-millionaire. That's sick.
Yeah. Hey, perfect example. When Trump came to Washington, he went over to the Department of Transportation. They're the ones who are responsible for approving and financing federal road and transportation projects. And what he found there was that the average application took around a couple 100,000 sheets, images, whatever, pages of PDFs. They probably don't submit paper anymore. Although with government, you never know. It took a couple 100,000 sheets of paper, as tall as he was, or maybe it was 14 feet high, and 10 years. And he immediately streamlined that process. I don't know that he's down to a year, but his goal initially was to get down to 2 years. And why is all of that happening, Chris? Because of the consultants and all of the people feeding at the trough that make these projects, as our good friends to the north, the Canadians, would say, prohibitively expensive. And, by doing that, he must have made thousands of enemies in one trip to one, a good-sized government agency, but not the largest by any stretch.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Trilogy Metals is a world-class developer in Alaska's Ambler mining district. The company already possesses 8 billion pounds of copper, 3 billion pounds of zinc, over 1 million gold-equivalent ounces, and now over 77 million pounds of cobalt. Trilogy's Arctic project boasts an after-tax net present value of $1.4 billion with a 33% IRR. Trilogy is led by an experienced management team with proven success in discovering and developing projects in Alaska. The company is well capitalized, has no debt, and possesses strong institutional support. Trilogy trades on the New York and Toronto exchanges under the ticker symbol TMQ. To learn more, go to trilogymetals.com. That's trilogymetals.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Oh, it's all over. I grew up in upstate New York. I grew up in Albany, and that's probably the closest thing, at least growing up, I recognized a socialist area I've ever seen. Every other building is a state office building up there, and our kids aspire to graduate from high school, and their big aspiration is to get a job with the state. And we see the amount of waste and fraud. You take a look at all of these states that have got these huge bureaucracies out there. Yeah, I understand that, you can't just go on a mass firing spree, but we're going to have to start getting rid of it and downsizing the state, do it by, attrition. Okay, somebody retires, that's it. We're just not going to fill that position anymore and take that type of power away. But again, I think one of the worst mistakes we made in this country is under Kennedy's administration was allowing for all the government workers to unionize. That was a real killer for this country. It really set us back.
Oh my God. Yeah, for sure. So many things going on in the country, in the world. Everyone's all bent out of shape about pulling out of Syria. And, I don't like the idea of abandoning the Kurds, but they've had 10 years now, actually 15 years to get their act together. We've given them untold billions of dollars, along with billions of military aid. They should be able to do this on their own now. I mean, really.
Well, the unfortunate thing is that they're not covering this properly. the area there close to Turkey it's really kind of a lot. The Kurds that are there are part of their Marxist Kurdish Workers Party, which we've already called a terrorist organization. The main swath of the Kurds happen to be in Iraq, is where they're located, and we continue to support them at that location. We moved 50, that's it, 50 troops out of the area. And this is the type of attention that's being paid to this. I have been, my first choice, I've always been a Ron Paul, Rand Paul guy.
Same here.
And we need to get out. Donald Trump said it. He said, we got to get out of these areas. We have to stop injecting ourselves into all of these areas around the world. We're not making any friends. And then you get the other side out there, the group that wants to be at perpetual war. And everybody asks themselves a question. When was the last time you can remember we were not at war? And I think the Reagan administration, we had a couple of skirmishes here and there, and that was a pretty successful time. But that's basically it, people. I mean, we shouldn't be in perpetual war. Our founders didn't want us to be in perpetual war. We're better off making ourselves stronger here and setting an example to the rest of the globe. I don't think bombing people is helping matters much, because we keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Mm-hmm. Hey, and look, the fact of the matter is, we could really stay in Afghanistan for the rest of our lives. There's only been, I think, 22 years in the country's existence where it hasn't been at war. So we're this perpetual war state. It's the warfare, welfare state, and neither of them works very well. Like you say, we'd be far better off spending the money at home and really seeing to the benefit of our own country. These wars, the last one we won, well, arguably we won the first Gulf War, but before that, the last war we won was World War II, and all it's done is burn up, kill people, cost us lives, not just on our side, but the other, and burn up treasure and add to the deficit. And that's another point that you make. Nobody seems to care anymore, Chris, about the deficit. Nobody cares about the debt.
Yeah, I really, it's hard for me to get my arms around it too. You take a look at these numbers now, and they're really, it's almost incomprehensible. To take a look at the sheer size of the amount of debt that we're in, the deficits that we're running. Republicans will be all yelling and screaming and getting all bent out of shape when there's a Democrat in the White House. But when they're in charge, forget it. We got to continue to spend and spend and spend some more. And it's kind of funny when we were having the whole tax cut debate that was taking place. I'm trying to say, well, why aren't we also talking about cutting spending at the same time, like any normal entity would go ahead and doing? Talking about, all right, let's look at our budget and see where we can make some cuts. If the Democrats are saying that the tax cuts are not going to increase revenue or help, well, then you know what? Well, let's find places where we can go ahead and we can save money here and there. But it's not how it works. It's not how we budget things. We just went past the worst week of the entire year for the American taxpayer, which is the last week in September, which is when every government agency out there has to make sure that they have no more money left. Mm-hmm. They have to spend it all. Every single dime must go. And you got to, even if you have to spend it on stupid nonsense you don't even need, it's got to be spent. You've got to go to zero. Name one business out there in the entire world that would function operating like that. Or maybe some of these new Silicon Valley unicorn companies, because people are dumb enough to throw money at them. Yeah, well, the money's gone, the money's gone. But you're looking right now where this is how we do things here in this country, and it makes no sense.
No, none whatsoever. Yeah. Well, the millennial companies like Uber, Lyft, they're just supposed to lose money. That's their purpose. But any other business that's actually run with profit in mind could not do it this way. It's madness. It's just insanity. Complete and total insanity. It needs to stop. But we're not going to solve this problem, you and I. But if enough people speak up, we're just wasting trillions of dollars. Figuring out, Obamacare, its biggest benefit was battery reimbursement for people's sex toys. It's just stupid things like that that the government has no business sticking its nose into.
Yeah, people need to also understand as well, and Elizabeth Warren, part of we started off talking about her. One of the things that she said she was going to put in was some sort of penalty tax that if you decided to up and leave the country, we're taking 60%. And I look at that, and nobody really highlights that. I said that's like a Berlin Wall. It's a financial Berlin Wall that she's looking to erect to keep people in. If you don't think people with means and money are going to leave ahead of time if they see her coming, they're going to. Maybe take a trip to Europe and see that the banks that they have set up in various different countries there and the type of wealth that is concentrated there, that people get out. You'll buy yourself a Maltese passport and get out. People are not going to go ahead and have their wealth confiscated if there's other options around the globe. And we just had that happen during the Obama administration, where companies were conducting tax inversions because they didn't want to pay the highest corporate tax rate in the world, and was basically reverse merger with a smaller company in Dublin to save themselves millions upon millions of dollars in taxes. If you don't think people are going to up and leave, they're going to.
Oh, yeah. There's not a question about it. They will leave. And look, if the Chinese can figure out how to get money and wealth out of communist China, then any country can do it. One of the best ways I ever saw is they invest in companies overseas, not to make money, but actually to lose money, so that then they have a built-in reason for shipping money from China to these companies. And, we lost 10 billion, but we're going to ship off 15 billion. This is what they did in the Bahamas with that huge casino project in Nassau. This is what they do. If they can get money out of China, they can get money out of any place. Currency controls be damned, especially with kleptocurrencies now. It makes it easier than ever. Well, I think we're kindred souls here, Chris. I think we could continue this conversation indefinitely, but we'll definitely have you on again. We really appreciate your being here. And just tell us again your website and your podcast and where we find you on the radio.
Oh, thank you so much. Website is watchdogonwallstreet.com, and my podcast is accessible there, my radio show, my newsletter, and everything on our website is absolutely free. All sorts of great educational stuff there. watchdogonwallstreet.com.
All right. And there's a link to it in the show notes. As always, just click it and you can see all of Chris's extensive work. Don't forget, hey, what do you think about government waste? What do you think about pulling out of Syria? Is it the right thing to do? I mean, you know our opinion. We want to hear yours. Email us, kl@kerrylutz.com. Don't forget our Twitter feed's @KerryLutz. Facebook page is Financial Survival Network. You could also take a look at my personal Facebook page. Just type in Kerry Lutz, and you'll see a lot of entertaining Florida man and Florida woman stories. There's no shortage of them, and I collect them. If you got a good Florida man story, Florida woman story, please email it to me, kl@kerrylutz.com. And whether you're listening to this on a podcast feed or platform or on YouTube, it would really help me a lot if you would subscribe, like, and share this. Get the word out, get the message out, because people like Chris, you're just not going to find them in the mainstream media every day. The only time they have Chris on a show is when they want to go after him and beat him up and try to make him look bad. But hey, let's get the message out, Chris. Really appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you again soon. You be well.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. God bless.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.